Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are discussing a major geopolitical development that has captured global attention, as Israel is warned following Italy's decision to send a warship to help protect humanitarian aid bound for Gaza. This move has sparked intense debate, diplomatic reactions, and questions about what it means for the region, international law, and the balance of power in the Mediterranean. To understand why this matters, we first need to look at the background of the Gaza aid situation. Gaza has been under severe humanitarian strain for years, and the current conflict has dramatically worsened conditions. Food, medicine, fuel, and basic supplies have become scarce, and international organizations have repeatedly warned of a deepening humanitarian crisis affecting civilians. Humanitarian aid to Gaza has always been politically sensitive. Israel maintains strict controls on what enters Gaza, citing security concerns and the need to prevent weapons from reaching militant groups. On the other hand, many countries and humanitarian agencies argue that these restrictions have gone too far and are contributing to civilian suffering. Italy's decision to deploy a warship is being framed as a protective and defensive measure. Italian officials have emphasized that the goal is not confrontation, but ensuring that humanitarian aid can reach civilians safely and without obstruction. According to Italy, the warship's presence is meant to deter attacks, escort aid shipments, and provide a visible guarantee of international oversight. This move immediately caught Israel's attention. From Israel's perspective, any foreign military presence near Gaza raises alarms. Israel is highly sensitive to changes in naval dynamics in the eastern Mediterranean, especially when those changes involve a conflict zone and active military operations. Israel's warning is less about Italy itself and more about the precedent this action sets. If one European country sends a warship to protect aid, others may follow. This could lead to a more crowded and complex naval environment, increasing the risk of misunderstandings, miscalculations, or even accidental clashes. Italy, however, argues that international law supports its position. Under maritime law, humanitarian aid missions are protected, and states have the right to ensure that their vessels and aid convoys are safe. Italy is also positioning itself as a responsible international actor committed to humanitarian principles rather than military escalation. This situation highlights a growing divide between security-focused approaches and humanitarian-focused approaches. Israel prioritizes preventing any advantage to hostile groups, while Italy and other European nations are increasingly vocal about civilian protection and access to aid. The involvement of a NATO member like Italy adds another layer of complexity. Although this is not a NATO mission, Italy's role as a NATO country means that its actions are closely watched by allies and rivals alike. Any incident involving an Italian warship could have wider diplomatic consequences beyond Israel and Gaza. The European Union has largely supported increased humanitarian access to Gaza. While not all EU countries agree on methods, there is a shared concern about the humanitarian toll of the conflict. Italy's action may reflect frustration with stalled diplomacy and a desire to take visible action rather than issue statements alone. For Israel, this development comes at a time of intense international pressure. Calls for ceasefires, investigations, and expanded aid access have grown louder. The presence of a European warship near Gaza could amplify scrutiny of Israeli naval operations and rules of engagement. There is also the question of deterrence. Italy's warship is not expected to engage in combat, but warships by nature project power. Their sensors, weapons, and visibility send a message. That message, whether intended or not, signals that Europe is willing to back humanitarian demands with military assets. Supporters of Italy's move argue that this is exactly what is needed. They say humanitarian aid has been delayed, blocked, or endangered for too long, and that only strong international involvement can ensure civilians receive help. From this view, the warship is a shield, not a sword. Critics, however, warn that militarizing humanitarian aid can be dangerous. They argue that introducing warships increases the risk of escalation and blurs the line between neutral aid and political pressure. If something goes wrong, even unintentionally, the consequences could be severe. Another important aspect is how this affects regional actors. Countries like Egypt, Turkey, and Greece are closely monitoring the situation. The Eastern Mediterranean is already a crowded strategic space with competing interests. and any new naval deployment shifts the balance even slightly. Turkey, in particular, has been vocal about Gaza and has previously suggested escorting aid missions. Italy's action may encourage similar moves by other countries, potentially leading to multiple naval escorts from different nations, each with its own rules and objectives. The United States has taken a cautious stance. While Washington supports humanitarian aid to Gaza, it also prioritizes Israel's security. The U.S. is likely concerned about any action that could complicate Israeli operations or risk confrontation involving allied forces. From a humanitarian perspective, the key question is whether this will actually help people on the ground. A warship can protect aid at sea, but aid must still be distributed safely once it arrives. Without coordination and cooperation on land, the impact may be limited. There is also the issue of perception. For Palestinians, Italy's move may be seen as a rare sign of concrete international support. For Israelis, it may feel like external interference in a conflict they see as directly tied to national survival. Media coverage has played a major role in shaping reactions. Headlines emphasizing Israel warned and warships sent naturally sound dramatic. This framing can heighten tensions and public emotions, even if officials behind the scenes are working to avoid confrontation. Diplomatically, this situation could either escalate or open new channels of negotiation. Israel and Italy may engage in talks to define rules, communication lines, and limits. Clear coordination could reduce risks and ensure the mission remains strictly humanitarian. If such coordination fails, the risks grow. Naval forces operate in high-stress environments where decisions are made quickly. Misinterpretation of intent, especially in contested waters, has historically led to serious incidents. This development also raises broader questions about the future of humanitarian interventions. As conflicts become more complex, traditional neutral aid delivery is increasingly difficult. States may feel compelled to use military assets to protect aid, changing long-standing norms. International law provides some guidance, but interpretation varies. What one country sees as lawful protection, another may see as provocation. These gray areas are where diplomatic skill becomes essential. For Italy, the decision carries both moral and political weight. Domestically, it signals commitment to humanitarian values. Internationally, it positions Italy as an active player rather than a passive observer. But it also exposes Italy to criticism and potential risk. For Israel, responding carefully is crucial. A harsh reaction could deepen diplomatic isolation, while a cooperative approach could ease tensions and demonstrate flexibility. Israel's warnings suggest concern, but not necessarily a desire for confrontation. The people most affected by all of this remain civilians in Gaza. Their immediate needs are food, water, shelter, and medical care. Geopolitical signaling means little if it does not translate into real relief. As this situation unfolds, watch for signs of coordination or escalation. Statements from defense ministries, changes in naval deployments, and diplomatic meetings will all provide clues about where this is heading. This moment may mark a shift in how the international community engages with the Gaza crisis. Whether it leads to safer aid delivery or greater tension depends on decisions made in the coming days and weeks. Ultimately, Italy's warship is a symbol. It represents frustration with the status quo, a push for humanitarian access, and a challenge to existing power dynamics. How Israel and other actors respond will shape not just this mission, but future interventions as well. The world is watching closely. In conflicts like this, small moves can have large consequences. The hope is that this step leads to more aid, less suffering, and a path toward de-escalation rather than another layer of conflict. As always, understanding the full context helps cut through the noise. This is not just about one warship or one warning. It is about how the international system responds when humanitarian needs collide with security concerns in one of the world's most sensitive regions.